Morning, good evening, good afternoon, boys and girls. We are going to complete an exam. Today, we are using the latest version of the BCE. I keep changing to the old version because the old version gives us the answers, but this new version doesn't give us the answers. So what I'll do is I will investigate in Google and do some research if I have any trouble with some of the questions. This one is actually easy. This one, I know it by memory because I had seen other times. So refer to the exhibit. Which prefix does router one use for traffic to host A? And the answer is D. It will use OSPF through this network, the 10.10.13.208/29. And let's analyze the question. It says, which prefix does router one uses for traffic to host A? So router one is trying to get to host A in this network. Of course, in order to access this network, it will use the 10.10.13.208/29 because it's the closest one to get to this destination network. It will update that in the routing table. Is the longest prefix match as well as the correct network to get to this specific host. So that is the main reason. Let's continue with the other one. This is one of the difficult ones because it breaks my head sometimes. So the outbound interface is the first one there. Then you have the timestamp, and then we have the metric. Looks like the metrics there. We have administrative distance over here, and we have the router source there. I'm just going to try. Hopefully everything is good. If not, we will know later. Next. This one, I know this one by memory because I said it all times. Is actually load balancing the traffic between uh 10.0.10 that 100 and 10.0.20 that 100. So that is one of the correct options. But I'm trying to remember the other one. The other one was 20 different network masks for the 10.0.0.0/8 network because we have 10 networks with this 10 gigabit 020 and other 10 networks with the 10.10. So it's actually doing the load balancing between 20 different networks. That is basically the best explanation that I can give you so far for now. So let's continue working on this exam. Next question. Refer to the exhibit. What is the effect of this configuration? IP, ARP inspection, VLAN 2, interface facilitator 0/1, switch for mode access, switch for access VLAN 2. So that is actually, it makes the port untrusted in order to avoid the spoofing attacks, the ARP spoofing attacks. Oh, this one, I know it is actually this one, if I'm not mistaken, but let's go ahead and read it just in case. Refer to the exhibit, with which metric was the route to host 172.16.0.202 learn 202. So according to what I know is this is the one of the lowest metrics that we're using here, lower than this one. And this is the correct network to get to 16.0.202/25, even though the prefix is lower than /29. This is out of the scope, so this will not be selected. The correct option will be this one, which is actually answer D. Next one. A Cisco IP phone receive untagged data traffic from an attached PC. Which action is taken by the phone? It allows the traffic to pass through and change. I think we studied this question before at some point in one of the dumps. What about this one? Which command enables IPv6 forwarding on a Cisco router is actually IPv6 unicast dash routing. Next. Which statement correctly compares traditional networks and controller-based networks? So let me let me check on this one because this is a little bit tricky. I'm not sure if it is A or D. I'm going to double check on this one. I think it might be D, but I will do some research about this one. Let's go to the internet just to validate. This is one of those tricky ones. We want to make sure we got the correct option. Okay. So only controller-based networks decouple the control plane and data plane. That is the correct answer. Now, we got it incorrectly. At least we did the research and we found the correct one, but maybe there's an error in the dump. That happens sometimes, so please be aware of that. Please be informed that sometimes the dumps have errors as well. The link becomes transport. I know this one by heart because I see it many, many times. So two switches are connected and using Cisco dynamic trunking protocol SW1 is set to dynamic desirable. What is the result of this configuration? The link becomes a trunk port. Okay, next. Okay, remember the Dora, the Explorer. So the first one is discover here. The second one is offer. The other one is Dora, the Explorer, acknowledge the end, and then request. So it's discover, offer, request, and acknowledge. Remember Dora the Explorer, so you don't forget this one, guys. Even though it looks like a little bit crazy to remember about the cartoon, but that will help you. That will help you a lot. Discover, offer, request, and acknowledge. Next one. Which feature on a Cisco wireless LAN controller, when enabled, restricts management access from the specific networks? That is the CPU ACL. Let's go with the next. Okay, this one I got it incorrectly once because I wasn't really reading correctly. And be careful about that. Is actually C, if I'm not mistaken. Let's double check the question. Refer to the exhibit. Which password must an engineer use to access the enabled mode? And this will be enabled secret, testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Option C will be the correct one. Next. What are two characteristics of the control-based network? So we might have to investigate this one, but I'm going to give it my best effort. It moves the control plane to a central point. I know this one for a fact. It decentralizes the control plane, which allows each device to make its forwarding decisions. See, not sure between this one and the APIs. Looks like maybe the APIs is the right one. I'm going to choose A and D for now, but I'm going to do some research and validate this one in the internet. A and D for now, but I might change it later. So let's take a look at this one. It uses the northbound and southbound APIs, and it moves the control plane to a central point. So we are good. We are good in this one. Next one. Okay, this one I know for a fact that it uses standard 001 as the router ID, and it ensures stability. It provides stability to the OSPF process of router B. Those are the right ones. Sometimes it might be mistaken because of the dump. Maybe there's an error in the dump, so be aware of that. But those should be the correct answers for this question. Refer to the exhibit. Which two statements are true about the loopback address that is configured on router B? Let's validate this one just in case, because we want to be sure 100% about this one, and I'm only 98% now. I want to validate that one. So the answer is it provides stability and it's specified the router ID. We are fine. Let's continue with the next one. This one is actually switch 3 because this is the lowest MAC address. I've seen this one a lot of times, so we can Continue. 3C90 root bridge. The question says like this: refer to the exhibit. Which switch in this configuration becomes the root bridge? And the one with the lowest MAC address is the root bridge. In this case, is switch 3. Okay, what it does when it is in transparent mode, what does the router do? What does the switch do? It transmits and process BTP updates from any BTP clients on the network? No. It forwards only BTP advertisement that it receives on its strong ports. This is the one. What about this one? This is a tricky one. I might look it up. I think this one is transport input telnet SSH, but I want to validate this one. Let's go to the internet and validate this one because it's a tricky one. It might be correct, but I want to double check just in case. So it's transport input telnet SSH. Transport input telnet SSH. All right, let's go with the next one. Refer to the exhibit. What does? We were able to read that one, right? Yeah, which command can you enter to allow telnet to be supported in addition to SSH? Is transport input telnet SSH. Refer to the exhibit. What does router 1 use as its OSPF router ID? Usually it's the loopback IP address. 172.16.15.10. Router 1 has learned the route 192 and 168.12.0/24 via ISIS. RIP, OSPF, and RIP. And internally a GRP under normal operating conditions. Which routing protocol is installed in the routing table? It will be the one with the lowest administrative distance. If I'm not mistaken, it will be EIGRP, internal EIGRP. Let's double check this one just to cover our back. I am 95% sure about this one, but I want to double check. Internally EIGRP, okay. Next one. When configuring a WLAN in WPA2 PSK in the Cisco Wireless LAN Controller GUI, which are the two correct formats working there, hexadecimal and AXI. Next. Okay, there is an authentication app in the mobile device for the multi-factor authentication. That one I know by fact. Next. The collisions are caused because the length exceeds, the limits are exceeded, and because of the half duplex. We're going to validate this one because sometimes it might be a little bit tricky, just in case, but I am 98% sure at this moment. So let's go to check, just in case. Late collisions. Late collisions. This is late collisions. This one says late collisions. What are two reasons that cause late collisions to increment on an interface, Ethernet interface? So it's actually the carrier sense multiple access collision detection being used and exceeded. Let's double check on that. When carrier sense multiple access collision detection is used and the cable length limits are exceeded. So maybe I was mistaken. Sometimes it can be a little bit different. Be careful, read these questions carefully because these are all very, very similar and you can get confused. Next. Show CDP neighbor. Next. Well, refer to the exhibit. Which command provides this output is actually show CDP neighbor. This is a tricky one. So which one must be unique? So remember that the router ID and the IP address must be unique. And the ones that must match is the area ID, the net mask, and the timers. Next. Okay. A leaf switch can be added as single connection to every spine switch. Is actually this one, DD. In which way does a span and leaf architecture allows for scalability in a network when additional access ports are required? A leaf switch can be added with connections to every span switch. Next. This is actually this one. I know it by a fact because the other ones are private IP addresses, so they will not work. And this one has a correct /30. Let's read the question. An engineer must configure a /30 subnet between two routers. Which usable IP address and subnet combination meets this criteria? And the other one that is a public IP address is the option B because the other one are private IP addresses. So only B is correct. Next. Which command verifies whether any IPv6 ACLs are configured on a router? Show IPv6 ACL. I think this is the right one, but I want to double check this one because it seems tricky and I want to be 100% sure, not only 98%. Okay. Show IPv6 access list. What is the default behavior of a layer 2 switch when a frame with an unknown destination MAC address is received? Okay. I think is it forwards the packet and adds it the destination to the MAC address table. I think it's that one, but this is also a tricky one. So we're going to double check on this one just in case. It will forward the packets to all ports except the receiving port in a given VLAN. So I was behind the tree. It's actually this one, the option A. The layer 2 switch floats packets to all ports except the receiving port in the given VLAN. Next. This is, I know it for a fact, it calculates the feasible distance to all paths. And it calculates the best backup path to the destination and assign it to the feasible successor. Those are the ones. Next. What two actions influence the EIGRP route selection process? You must, okay, which mode must be used to configure either channel between two switches without the negotiation protocols is actually on, as far as I remember. Next. Okay, this is a difficult one. We might have to get some help with this one. Let me do some research there. Doesn't look like too much friendly for me. Let's try to get some help with that one. Let's go to images. So according to this is verify the password and identifies the user for the first part for authentication. Verify the password. And what is the other one? Do you guys remember? Identifies the user. Okay, that is authentication. What about authorization? Controls the action that the user can perform. Okay, and restricts the services. Restrict the services. And finally, we have accounting. Provides analytical information for the network administrator. And it records user activities, right? Yeah. Next. Ooh, be careful. You don't have to end the exam because you might lose it. Okay, so what about wireless LAN controller? It manages access points. It provides Wi-Fi access point. It uses out-of-band management. This looks like I don't really remember this one. Okay. Mobility looks like dynamic. Service port and virtual interface. Let's go ahead and validate this one just in case. I am 97% sure, but I want to be 100% sure. Let's go to the images. So this is actually the one that says about mobility and service. According to this one is wireless LAN access service port virtual and dynamic interface for the last one. So I am having a problem there. Dynamic interface for the wireless LAN communication and the mobility is the virtual interface. Let me validate that with other questions and responses just in case to see if we can see it there. Do we see it any other where? Any other place? So I see dynamic interface, virtual interface. Let's see that. Virtual interface, dynamic interface. Then service port. Okay, yeah. It's this one according to what I see. When a floating static route is configured, which action ensures the backup route is used when the primary route fails? Okay, so this is related to the administrative distance, but it's actually A. The floating static route must be higher, must have a higher administrative distance than the primary route, so it is used as a backup. Next. I remember this one is silver for the QoS for wireless. This is actually voice. Let me double check this one because I think it's correct, but I want to be 100% sure. I think it's silver, but let's check. Let's check this one. In the meantime, we are going to read the question there. It says, which QoS profile is selected in the GUI when configuring voice over WLAN? It's actually platinum. Platinum. Do we have an explanation on this? Not really. So just remember that for voice, the correct profile is platinum. Platinum. I remember I had an explanation there somewhere. I don't have it here. It's actually platinum there. Next. Okay, the encoding method for the REST API are actually XML and JSON, if I'm not mistaken. Let's double check on this one just in case. But I think we should be all good now. So let me work on it. And let's take a look at this. It's JSON and XML. Okay, good. Next. Web policy. Okay, I remember the mechanisms for this is actually WPA2 and X100.1x, web policy and pass-through. This is as far as I remember it. For the layer 3, web policy and pass-through, and for the layer 2, WPA2 and 800.1x. Let's double check on that one, but I think it's good. I am 99% sure it's a fine answer. I will just double check just in case, but it should be all right. So we have WPA2 and 802.1x, web policy and pass-through. Yeah, we're good. Next. This is a tricky one because it's about the configuration for Atlanta and all that. Atlanta, New York, and Washington. As far as I remember, we need to get, okay, let's read this one and try to analyze it. Refer to the civil. An engineer in the New York needs to reach Atlanta, serial 000 as a primary. 000 as a primary. So this one has to be something like this. Something like this to get to the primary. And the other one has to be the backup. Let me go ahead and double check this one just in case, because it's a very tricky one. So the first one about this one is actually A, 2000 colon 1 slash 28, 128, 2012 colon 1. This is the first option correct. Let's see if it matches this. If I don't see it there. Let me see if I can see it. The 2012 to get to the route is actually the, in this one is actually the option B. It's actually the option B. 2012 colon 1 and 128, 2001 over there. Okay, and the other one is the 3.5. 3.5 is actually A and B. A and B here. So we need to study IPv6 and understand it fully in order to understand this one. It's configuring a static route, but for IPv6. So in order to get to the correct destination, we are trying to get from New York to the other next hop addresses. So the first one is the 20, 23 colon 3, which is actually located somewhere around here. And that is from New York, leaving from New York. 2000 colon 2 slash 128. But why is it 2000 colon 1? Are we configuring something in Atlanta or what? Let me just double check. New York is reaching out of Atlanta router 0000. So it's actually what I see is actually reaching from New York to Atlanta. So it's actually from New York, it's actually configuring to get to this destination route. To this destination route. That's why we configured that. And let me see what exactly what happened here. 2023 3. That is actually in Washington. With the administrative distance of 1. That is a backup route that we are using to get okay, from Washington, or to get to Washington from this specific route of New York. And what about the other one? 2000 and colon 1 slash 28 to get to 2012 colon 1. Okay, so it looks like this one, the option B, is related to getting from New York to Atlanta. So one will help us out to get from New York to Atlanta. The next hop IP address is actually this one. And the other one will help us out to get to Washington. But the one that we are using to get to Washington has to be an administrative distance because it's the backup. So probably along the way, they stated that to get to Washington, we have to use it as a backup. Which two commands must be configured in the New York set so that it reaches loopback 1 interface of Atlanta router via Washington when the link between New York and Atlanta goes down? Okay, so the primary route is New York to Atlanta. That is the first one we configure here, the static route. But in case that one fails, we configure an administrative distance and a backup static IPv6 route to get from New York to Washington. So that's a very tricky one. We spent a lot of time in this one. But we needed to analyze it and try to understand it as best as possible. Next one. Which two values or settings must be entered when configuring a new WLAN in the Cisco wireless LAN controller? SSID is one of those, and profile name. Those are the ones as far as I remember correct. Okay. We are almost done. We only have 2 more questions to go. This is a tricky one. Actually, this one I know it for a fact. This is one of the correct ones. This is not correct. This is actually one of the correct ones. This is not correct. This is a tricky one. This is a tricky one. We have to be careful about these kind of questions. 10, 16, 25, and 29. I think that is the correct choice. Let's double check those just in case. This is related to broadcast IP addresses and subnetting mainly. So we have to review our subnetting books to be 100% sure about those. But 10, 29, 16, and 25, that is the correct order. 10, 29, 29, 16, and 25. So it looks like that is the correct one. We had the correct choice. It just we didn't have the correct order. 10, 29, 16, and 25. 10, 29, 16, and 25. Let's double check those. 10, that's 63. 172, that's 16. 255, that's 230, that's 39. 172, that's 20. 182 and 168, that's 255, that's 127. We're good. Next. Okay, so this one is basically to find the correct IP addresses. Those are actually not IP addresses. So we have to discard the /24 options. And the other ones stay like /10, /29, 16, and 25. Those are the correct broadcast IP addresses here. Next. This is our last one. This is actually an easy one, so we have to analyze it a little bit. So the first thing we do is trying to figure out is traveling via 192 and 168 and 1.193. Refer to the exhibit. This is actually the default gateway. And what about our network? The source IP address is here, so that will be the host IP address there, the subnet mask. The vendor is the first one, and the NIC MAC address is this one. Let's end the exam and let's go to see how we did it. We did it very, very good. We just failed a couple of questions there, but we did pretty much okay. We got a 955. We are still failing in IP connectivity a little bit and the network fundamentals. So we have to work on those two topics, network fundamentals and IP connectivity. This one, maybe this one was actually the exceeded at the half duplex. Maybe the dump that we got is correct and the internet option that we look online is incorrect. And what about the other one? Okay, this is the one for the OSPF ID. Okay, the timers should be choose match. The air, okay, what about the net mask? Should be unique, right? No, it should match. What about the area ID? We need the same area ID, yes. Yes, we need the same area ID. We need the IP address should be unique. The router ID should be unique. The router ID and IP address, and the net mask should be different. I think those are the options that we selected before, but what are we missing here? We still fail one of those. We got the network fundamentals, the IP connectivity. So we are still having this one incorrect. Let me think. So the area ID should match. The IP address should be different. The OSPF process ID should match. The timers should match. The router ID should be unique. So the netmask, look like maybe netmask is the incorrect one. We still haven't got it this one correctly. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording so I can figure out this one because it's a little bit tricky. This one is actually OSPF is should be there, but this is for the unique. We have to add it in this order. It must match the area ID, the net mask, and the timers. And then the unique options are the IP address and the router ID. Those are basically the correct options. So that is what I was missing there. So let me just click in exit. Let's go to the history. Most of the exams we are doing really good. We fail a couple of those. So let's just clear it. And let's just move forward. Okay, boys and girls, it's been a pleasure. Take care, and remember to keep practicing because practice makes perfect. Goodbye.